Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead by Sir Tom Stoppard. As Daily Telegraph described, this play is one of the most original and engaging of post-war plays. It is a play which takes place in the wings of the Hamlet and finds both humor and tragedy in the situation of the ill-fated attendant lords. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern attempt to discover the cause of Hamlet's apparent madness and their own purpose in the world. Sir Tom Stoppard. He is a Czech-born British playwright and a screenwriter. His work covers the themes of human rights, censorship, and political freedom, often delving into a deeper philosophical thematic of society. He has written for television, radio, film, and stage, finding prominence with plays such as his major works Arcadia, The Cost of Utopia, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, Professional Fall, The Real Thing, Travesties, The Invention of Love, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. If we look into the play for an appraisal, we understand that the play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead cleverly reinterprets Shakespeare's Hamlet from the point of view of two minor characters, that is, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Stoppard's play turns Hamlet on its head by giving Rosencrantz and Guildenstern main roles and reducing all of Shakespeare's major characters, including Hamlet, to minor roles. Written around and in between the lines of Shakespeare's play, Stoppard brilliantly takes the main concerns of contemporary theatre, that is, absurdism, the inevitability of death, and breakdown in communication and feeling. Stoppard does not give much information about the location of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern or about the characters themselves. Instead, he expects the readers of his play to be familiar with Hamlet, on which so much of the plot of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are based. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are traveling to Elsinore, having been sent for by Claudius, the King of Denmark, to watch over Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. They have no idea about what they are doing or where they are, although they vaguely recall being woken by someone, a messenger, and asked to go somewhere. This inability to recall the significant events or to understand their circumstances continues throughout the play. They travel flipping coins, which keep coming up heads always. Each time a coin lands on head, Rosencrantz wins it, while Guildenstern worries about the improbability of a coin landing on heads so many times in a row. Rosencrantz happily continues flipping. Guildenstern wonders if they have entered a world where the laws of chance and time are absent. When Rosencrantz tries being tired of the coin flipping, he begins cutting his fingernail and imagining what happens to the nails after his death. It may be a foreshadowing of his own death, the real death in Act 3. His actions demonstrate a relaxed attitude toward the world. He generally believes that everything is and will be okay, and he has no interest in worrying about the unknowns. They encounter a troupe of actors known as the tragedians. Being specialized in sexual performances, they give Rosencrantz and Guildenstern the chance to participate in the acting for a fee. In the interaction among the tragedians, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern introduces the elements of homoeroticism into the play. The player explains the very special brand of a drama performed by the actors, one that lets the audience watch or for more money participate in sexual scenes. The tragedian's unique brand of performance confuses the two men, even though the group clearly fulfills an acknowledged social need. The player mentions that he never steps out of the character, he is always on stage and he is always acting. These references to plays, acting and performance let Stoppard comment on his own play as a play using the technique known as self-reference or metafiction. Later, after Claudius and Gertrude have requested that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern spend some time with Hamlet and find what is bothering Hamlet, their childhood friend. Being bewildered, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern discuss how they might probe Hamlet for the cause of his supposed madness. They play a game of question and answer, further confusing themselves about their purpose and even their identities. Guildenstern suggests that he pretends to be Hamlet while Rosencrantz questions him. They realize that Hamlet's disturbed state may be due to the fact that his father, the former king of Denmark, has recently died and the throne has been seized by Hamlet's uncle Claudius, who has also married Hamlet's mother Gertrude. They continue for quite some time but end the game more confused than when they began. The pair is capable of lobbing out an infinite number of questions, but have absolutely no ability to provide any answers. Therefore, any attempt to probe deeper into the meaning of their current circumstances results only in further frustration. Like the coin tossing game earlier, the question game too has left Rosencrantz and especially Guildenstern with a looser grip on reality. Stoppard takes lines directly from Hamlet as a way of emphasizing the relationship between his play and the Shakespeare's play. We notice that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern speaking to the character from Hamlet in Shakespearean language, whereas between themselves in modern language. On the other hand, Stoppard's versions of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are very different from the two men found in Hamlet. Whereas Shakespeare portrays the two men with little personality, Stoppard gives the men individual characteristics and far more lines than in the original play. They think, they feel, they joke, they gamble, and they reason. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern clearly want to help Hamlet and they attempt to ascertain whether Hamlet has in fact gone insane through the game of question and answer. In this sense, Stoppard, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern do not simply act as agents of Claudius as Shakespeare's versions do. Instead, Stoppard lets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern try to function independently from both Claudius the king and Shakespeare, the original creator. Stoppard wants to emphasize Hamlet as not solely the greatest work of drama in the English language, but as a play capable of speaking to us on a human gut level even today. In the second act, it showcases that art directly reflects life. The tragedians perform a play for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that recounts the events of Hamlet and reveals the pair's fate. Despite the fact that the two players portraying Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are wearing clothes identical to their own, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are unable to understand the significance of the play happening on stage in the play and what it means for them. They both seem to recognize the two characters as significant. Rosencrantz even goes so far as to say, "I don't know you, don't I?" However, they are unable to come to any conclusion as to why they are significant. They are so detached from any meaning in their own lives that they are completely incapable of recognizing it even when it is staring at them in their own face. Rosencrantz wants art to have a story, complete with a beginning, middle, and end. while Guildenstern prefers art to resemble life as closely as possible. The player reminds Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that life, like the kind of art that Rosencrantz wants, has a beginning, middle, and end, and the murder of Gonzago too ends in death. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, as does life, and like life, which itself always ends in death, the play too ends in death. Close to the end of the play, when they are on board headed to England and to their own deaths, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern discover that the letter demanding Hamlet's death has been replaced with one demanding their own deaths. The two men are completely ignorant as to how this happened and despair of the fact that they still do not know how they got into their current position or what they could have done to avoid it. As the play ends, the two resign themselves to their own fate, no wiser than when they first began their search for an explanation. Shakespeare's Hamlet is a tragedy with occasional moments of comedy, whereas Stoppard's play is a comedy with occasional moments of tragedy. Stoppard wrote Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead in an absurdist and meta-theatrical tradition, being enormously influenced by Samuel Beckett's writing, Samuel Beckett's work Waiting for Godot, which was in 1952's production, where we see where two tramps sitting on stage walking back and forth and waiting for someone named Godot, who never comes. We understand that Beckett's play is just as important to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead as just Hamlet is. The characters. Rosencrantz. He is a gentleman and a childhood friend of Hamlet. Along with his companion Guildenstern, Rosencrantz seeks to uncover the cause of Hamlet's strange behavior but finds himself confused by his own role in the action of the play. Rosencrantz has a carefree and artless personality that covers or masks the deep anxiety about his own fate. Guildenstern. He is also a gentleman and a childhood friend of Hamlet. Accompanied by Rosencrantz, Guildenstern tries to discover what is troubling Hamlet as well as his own purpose in the world. Although frequently confused by the world around him, Guildenstern is a meditative man who believes that he can understand his own life. The player. The leader of the traveling actors known as the tragedians. The player is an enigmatic, a secret figure. His cunning wit and confident air suggests that he knows more than he is letting on. The impoverished state of his acting troupe makes him eager to please others but only on his own terms. Now the tragedians. They are a group of traveling male actors. The tragedians specialize in melodramatic and sensationalistic performances, and they are willing to engage in sexual entertainments if the price is right. Now, there are also the same characters of the play Hamlet, that they are Hamlet, Claudius, Gertrude, Polonius, Ophelia, and Laertes. Analyzing some of the themes of the play, there is an emphasis on the absurdity of the world. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead charts the human struggle to make sense of a universe characterized by utter randomness, harshness towards human life, and complete apathy towards the human condition. All human meaning is undermined by the meaninglessness of the environment humans are forced to inhabit. The effort to make meaning thus grows increasingly absurd. The play's use of language reflects the absurdity of human attempts to make meaning, incorporating wordplay and pushing the bounds of sense to demonstrate how difficult it is to convey significance. Dialogue in the play frequently replicates the coin toss revelation. What at first seems absurd is actually reality. What seems false is revealed to be true. As Guildenstern says, all your life you live so close to truth it becomes a permanent blur in the corner of your eye. The play's many instances of mishearing and misunderstanding start to grow their own sense of accuracy. Death, as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern repeatedly remind the audience, is the unknown, is beyond the grasp of human perception. When Rosencrantz tries to rationalize death by comparing it to a boat, Guildenstern responds, "No, no, no, death is not, death isn't. Death is the ultimate negative, not being. You cannot not be on a boat." By riddling the play with moments of lost meaning, the play's script creates a linguistic experience, not understanding, akin to the unimaginable not being of death that renders life in the world so absurd. Now, another theme, the incomprehensibility of the world. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead highlights the fundamental mystery of the world. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern spent the entirety of the play in total confusion, lacking such basic information as their own identities. Stoppard frequently uses their confusion for comic effect. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern occasionally become so frustrated by the world's incomprehensibility that they fall into despair. The play ultimately suggests that the prominent role of chance in our lives, coupled with the difficulty of discerning the true intentions and desires of other people, leads to almost paralyzing confusion. Although this experience may sometimes be amusing or seem funny when it happens to others, in the end it is one of the most dreadful aspects of existence. Now looking into the relevance of this play today. If life were a play, most of us would be minor characters in it. Sure, we might imagine it differently, but very few of us live our lives like Hamlets. In general, we more closely resemble the silly characters that only occasionally get caught up in the central action. Characters like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. We call ourselves masters of our domains, but when we think about how many things in our lives we actually have control over, it is not necessarily a long list. If there is one thing that we don't have control over at all, one thing that is absolutely certain, it is that we are going to die. We don't think about this too often, for it is not a cheerful subject. It is one of the most common things in the world, and yet, when you get down to it, none of us knows a thing about it. It's a real mystery, and our imagination falls short to visualize this reality. Stoppard's play cleverly explores all of these issues surrounding death. It doesn't give heroic or tragic deaths like we get in Hamlet, but it tries to figure out what is significant when a minor character dies, someone unimportant who dies by their own folly, and what could be well related with any ordinary one's life here on earth. And that makes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead relevant even today. Thank you.